What's the word, ladies and gentlemen? Today in Dirty Bomb we have another loadout review. I mentioned previously in my Fragger video I would do this, so here it is. Today we'll be going over the M62 Power Rifleman. The variant I have is in gold, but don't be surprised if you come across it in another color. It's just the same loadout, just different cosmetics. Now we'll be talking about its augments, the weapons, and compare to other loadouts to ultimately determine how good this loadout really stacks up to be. So without wasting too much time, guys, let's talk about the weapons you get with this card. First, for the primary, you get the M4A1. Yes, it is the gun that you start off with as Skyhammer, but this gun is a beast. It's like super laser mode. I'll go ahead and post the stats here on the screen for you guys. So yeah, for damage it does 14 damage per shot to the body, which is 28 damage to the head. It shoots at a rate of 537 RPM with a reload time of 2.1 seconds. Now its magazine size is going to be 35 rounds, and with all that put together you have a DPS or damage per second of 125 if you land all body shots. However, I want to compare it to the K121 LMG, you know, the signature weapon for Fragger. When you think Fragger, you think of that nice big juicy LMG, and you guys may remember me going over this in my previous video about Fragger, but the TLDR version of this is that the M41 offers lower damage but is more manageable as far as recoil and accuracy, whereas the K121 has that huge damage but at the cost of accuracy. So if you were to compare, you know, the DPS of the M4A1 all body shots to the K121, the M4A1 would do 125 damage per second as compared to the K121's 135. That's like a 10-point difference. Now, despite the lower damage, the M4A1 does offer that higher accuracy, which means you'll be a lot more consistent with this gun. It is a more consistent gun. And with that consistency, that allows you, or me, whoever's using this, to be able to laser people in the face with hip fire. It's extremely easy to do this, and I guess if you were to compare this to the K121, the K121 has a much bigger bloom per shot value when compared to the M4A1. So take it for what you will, guys. Maybe you like the LMG on Fragger, but I just feel like the M4A1 is just a fantastic weapon. Next up we have the Desmeon revolver, which is a great sidearm in my opinion. I have a soft spot for revolvers, so it offers that heavy damage of the revolvers, coming in with 25 damage per shot to the body or 50 damage to the head. It has a rate of fire of 301, though I actually wouldn't spam this weapon as it only has 6 rounds before you have to reload it, with its reload speed of 1.9 seconds. This revolver is pretty awesome as it offers that big damage while still having decent accuracy. At least it's better accuracy than its bigger brother, the S&W. While it's not necessarily like a spam panic weapon, be accurate with this pistol, you know, time your shots, and you'll be surprised in how well it performs. Alrighty, so next up we have the Toledo Knife for your melee weapon, which isn't that bad of a melee weapon at all, despite its changes it went through in recent weeks. Who knows, you know, maybe by the time you guys are watching this, it would have changed again, but at least for now, it will hit for 85 damage in the stab attack motion animation, whatever you want to call it, and then the slash will hit for 35 damage, so pretty decent knife. Now, onto the augments, we have Cool, Unshakable, and Explodydendron. Let's go over the first one, Cool. Now, I'm gonna be honest, guys, I'm not a huge fan of the MGs by any means, but I will say I've grown to appreciate, you know, a good flank and an MG wipe here and there. But that said though, I don't think I've ever needed the extra duration on the MG. I typically find myself killing a few folks and then hopping off the turret to avoid sniper rifle fire, and then hopping back on again. So Cool will increase the time it takes for the MG to overheat by a whopping 50%. But at the same time, you know, even though it is 50% increase, I rarely, if ever, find myself holding down the trigger on the MG all the way to overheating. So I figure like the perk is pretty useless, I have to say. However, to make up for this, the next augment we have is Unshakable, which will reduce the amount of damage you take from explosives by 20%. This is actually a very nice perk, as Fragger's playstyle as like a front linesman, you'll be running into a lot of airstrikes, grenades, artillery, maybe even some mines here and there. With Fragger's massive health pool, I found that the 20% extra resistance helps out quite a bit in surviving those nasty explosions. Now, 20% isn't a huge number, but if you take his 150 HP into account, 20% resistance to explosions will mean 180 effective HP versus explosions alone. That isn't too shabby. Now, for the final augment, which I think is a must-have on Fragger, is Explodydendron, which will give you an extra 10% increase on your grenades. I don't think this is a huge difference in the explosion radius, but I would say it's pretty handy for one of the deadliest abilities in the game. I mean, if you're gonna have explosives, you might as well have this augment in your loadout card. Now, unlike Nader's spammable grenades, Fragger's grenades can be cooked and thrown at a pretty good distance, so anything to help with flushing out clusters of baddies is always pretty awesome. So I guess you guys may be wondering, how does this loadout stack up against the other loadouts? You know, should I be using this one versus, I don't know, this other one I have in my loadout bank? Well, in my opinion, the M62 Power Rifleman has got to be one of the best M4A1 Fragger loadouts. And overall, I think, at least for me, it's my favorite loadout for Fragger. Now, if you're into LMGs for Fragger, I would take a look at the K51 Power Gunner, as that loadout is fantastic for those who love the K121 LMG. However, for me though, despite months of exclusively using the LMG on Fragger, I've really grown to love the accuracy of the M4A1. Overall, I feel like the weapons on this loadout are all top notch. You know, the M41's great, the Desmeon's fantastic, the Toledo's a good knife, plus the fact that you get pretty decent augments. You know, all these augments really do augment Fragger's offensive and defensive capabilities, with the Explodydendron to make your nades that much more deadly, and Unshakable to make you much more tanky versus explosions. Anyways, I hope this video was helpful to you guys. If you found this helpful, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you're new to my channel and this is the first video you are seeing, if this is the very first video you're seeing, be sure to check out my other videos. I'm doing loads of Dirty Bomb content. And I guess to my current subscribers, I want to ask, is there another game you would like me to cover? You know, I know Overwatch and Battleborn will be coming out, and they are games I plan on covering, but they're not out yet. So I figure, in the meantime, is there sort of any game you guys think that you would like to see me cover? You know, I don't want to post a game, or rather a video of a game and only get like a small fraction of you guys actually watching it. You know, I want to make something that a lot of you would actually want to watch. Alrighty, I think that's just about it for today, so I'm gonna go ahead and sign off here, and I'll see you in the next episode.
DJ